In a small town, lost amidst endless forests, there lived a girl named Alina. She was always the unnoticed neighbor who read books by the light of her desk lamp and rarely left the house after sunset. But one day, her life began to change in the strangest ways. It all started when she noticed something peculiar in her window. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the last ray of light faded away, Alina saw a silhouette. At first, she thought it was just the play of shadows from the trees in the yard or a random passerby. But over time, the silhouette became clearer almost. Human. It stood there every night, motionless, as if watching. And whenever she approached the window, it vanished. Alina tried to convince herself that it was just her imagination. But one evening, she heard a rustle, a quiet, barely audible sound, like someone scratching their nails against the glass. She froze, feeling a chill run down her spine. Getting out of bed, she slowly approached the window and yanked the curtains open. There was no one outside, only the dark forest swaying in the wind and the full moon casting its ghostly glow on everything around. But something wasn't right. The forest, which had always seemed familiar and peaceful, now felt different. The trees leaned closer to the house, their branches stretching toward the windows as if trying to peek inside. And between the trunks, something dark and fast flickered, too blurry to make out what it was. The next morning, Alina decided to confide in her grandmother, who lived in the neighboring village. The old woman was known as a local healer and herbalist, and many people in the town sought her advice. After listening to her granddaughter, the old woman frowned and pulled out a worn book with singed page edges from an ancient chest. "This place is special," she said, pointing at a map of the town that she took from the book. "Where you live, something terrible happened here long ago. People have forgotten, but the land remembers. The shadows you see aren't just your imagination. They're the ones who couldn't leave. They're bound to this place." Alina returned home, her heart tightening with anxiety. Her grandmother gave her a sachet of herbs, claiming it would protect her from dark forces. But as more days passed, the occurrences grew stronger. Now the silhouettes weren't just outside the window, they were inside the house too. Sometimes they darted across the corner of the room, other times in the mirror. One night, Alina woke up to the sensation of someone breathing near her ear. She sat up abruptly and saw a dark figure glide through the wall and disappear. She began documenting everything in an old notebook. Every night, she wrote down her observations, trying to find logic in the chaos. But the more she wrote, the stranger her notes became. One morning, she discovered that part of the text in the notebook wasn't written by her. It was as if someone else had added a few lines during the night while she slept. There was only one sentence. "Why don't you want to stay?" Alina realized she couldn't stay in the house any longer. She packed her things and called her friend, asking for shelter for at least one night. But as she prepared to leave, she heard a voice. A voice that didn't come from outside, but echoed inside her mind. Soft, soothing, almost friendly. "Don't go. We just want to talk." She froze, feeling cold gripping her body. The door was right in front of her, only a few steps away. But something held her back, something she couldn't explain. She stood there, unmoving, as the room around her began to change. Cracks spread across the walls, and the floor beneath her feet turned soft, like boggy soil. The air filled with the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves. When her friend arrived, the door was locked from the inside. No one answered her knocks. The police eventually broke in, but the house was empty. On the table lay her notebook, open to the last page. Written there were the words, "I'm staying." No one ever found out what happened to Alina. Belongings were still there, her phone on the bed, and the windows and doors remained closed from the inside. But the scent of wet earth and forest lingered in the air. The next day, her neighbor claimed to have seen dark silhouettes circling the house. Now they didn't disappear even during the day. Alina's story quickly spread throughout the town, but nothing could be done. Months passed, and people noticed the forest growing darker than usual. Even at noon, sunlight barely pierced the thick canopy of branches. And sometimes, if you stared deep into the woods for long enough, you could see the silhouette of a girl standing among the trees. She looked at you, and in her gaze there was something strange, not fear, not pain, but rather an invitation. What happened to Alina? Who were those shadows? And why did they choose her? The answers remained buried somewhere deep in the forest, where light never touches the ground, and the shadows continue their silent hunt. And if you ever find yourself in that town, remember to lock your windows at night. And whatever you do, don't look into the mirror when the lights go out.